Hey, how you doing?
Hey guys.
Sorry, I'm just still laughing at Brian talking about when he discovered how long the shack was. I was like, oh yeah, it's only 2 minutes shorter than Logan. I was like, that's why I didn't have time to see both movies tonight. He's like, suddenly this makes more sense, and why you didn't tell me it was so long. I had to find that out on my own. Oh, how long could this be? Oh, god damn it. Anyway, I haven't seen The Shack. I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say we saw the better movie.
Well, you know, for this time of year, there's no question we saw the better movie.
You know what? Honestly, there's been some really good shit out lately. Yeah.
The past couple of years, like, February hasn't been such a terrible dumping ground. January's still not great.
Even this year, January still had some, I mean, aside from, like, you know, the Oscar stuff that finally made it to Springfield in January, aside from that, like, no, like, even January had, like, Split.
Yeah.
There was maybe a couple other things that I liked. I went to go see Get Out for a second time the other day. That came out last week. And, anyway, so here's Logan.
Yeah.
A really damn good movie.
No, it's It was really good. I'll admit, like, I think I probably liked it less than almost everyone else who's seen it.
Well, not the 5% who didn't like it on Rotten. You probably liked it better than Armand White. Just guessing.
Well, even those 5%, like, I still got to give it a good review. It was a good movie. I have issues with it. They're primarily, though, my issues.
Sure. I mean, goes without saying, you know the source material way more than me. I only kind of know all of this from the movies. I didn't grow up reading the comics. Grew up playing the arcade game.
Well, classic.
Yeah.
Nah, they did their own thing. It's a future. Yeah, there's tons of stories in comics about Wolverine in the future.
Old Man Logan.
That was a very specific storyline from a couple of years ago, and this is honestly nothing like it.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, nothing like it at all. And they couldn't do Old Man Logan because the Old Man Logan storyline in the comics involves pretty much the entire Marvel universe.
Oh, gotcha.
So there's no way that, like,
yeah.
There's, like, that has, like, the Hulk is a huge part of Old Man Logan. Like, the Red Skull is a big part of Old Man Logan. Hawkeye is the sidekick in it. Like, they couldn't...
Get Eric Bana back.
They couldn't have done Old Man Logan.
Yeah.
But they did a future older Wolverine. Fine.
And this is a really damn good one to go out on. Honestly.
Well, and apparently, like, Patrick Stewart was planning on doing another X-Men movie, and he's like, I'm done. Yeah.
No, seriously, like... Go out on a high, man.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of these movies, and there's some that are really damn good. There's ones that are really fucking bad. There's ones that are just forgettable.
Yeah.
This one, I mean, you know, in terms of it's just sheer filmmaking alone, this is probably hands down the best one.
Filmmaking alone, absolutely. I mean, and it's James Mangold, who is a good director. I mean, he's made movies that are worse than his other movies, but for the most part, like, when's the last time you saw a James Mangold movie and you're like, oh, that sucked?
Off the top of my head, I can't remember.
Yeah,
he also did the Wolverine, right?
He did the Wolverine, and
I liked that.
And it was good, and I mean, anything would have been better than
Origins.
Yeah. and the Wolverine's good, and like, to me, the Wolverine, even watching that, felt like, all right, he wanted to do one thing, and the studio's like, yeah, but it's got to have a giant robot.
Yeah, and it felt like that.
Yeah.
This certainly feels like it's a Wolverine movie that you've probably wanted to see for a very long time.
Tone-wise,
yeah.
Definitely the tone more of, you know, Wolverine is, it depends on who's writing the comics, but I mean, this is more tonally to some of the Wolverine storylines that I've liked. Darker and more violent and
this movie
visceral as shit.
Yeah, I mean, this movie is like if Sam Peckinpah decided he wanted to make an X-Men movie and it starred Clint Eastwood, you know, that's kind of this movie. Which is maybe why I really fucking dug the shit out of this.
Yeah. Well, and beyond that, and this too, it's these actors that have been, especially Patrick Stewart and fucking Hugh Jackman, have been doing these roles for almost 20 years now. Like, they finally got to, like, really bust out the acting chops in one of these movies. And quite frankly, it's not going to happen, but, like, both of them honestly had, if it weren't a genre movie, Oscar-winning performances.
I was thinking that while I was watching this movie, seriously, because I just want that to happen for Hugh Jackman at some point. Like, even beyond this, like, I remember leaving Prisoners just, like, shaken leaving that. He was so good in that fucking movie.
He's a fantastic actor, and he's amazing in this. He's hitting the emotional notes that he's never gotten to do with this character. And he kills it, and fucking Patrick Stewart is never been fucking funnier.
Oh, yeah, that's a good thing about this movie, too, because, like, it is dark, and you've seen the trailers for this. It's grittier, it's an R. Like, it's
an easy hard R.
Yeah, there's decapitations, there's limbs being flown left and right, but you know what? It also has a little bit of humor, too. It's not just straight up bleak and cynical, but it's also not forcing any humor in it either. When
the whole story of this movie, I think, is the opposite of cynical. It's going.
No, yeah, I agree.
I think the movie it's kind of in its essence about not being cynical.
Well, honestly, even the R rating itself isn't cynical. It's not like, oh, hey, look, Deadpool did good, so we can make this movie R rating, so, fuck it, we'll just make it R, like that R cut of, like, Batman v Superman or something like that. There was like, let's throw some blood in there, call it R,
even
whatever.
Before Deadpool came out, they had the go-ahead from Fox to do
well, that's good,
movie.
But, like, this is a movie whose style, script, tone, action, and everything
needed to be
requires an R.
Yeah.
This doesn't feel like something that, like, they just kind of added a bunch of blood and guts in here just so they could make it the adult Wolverine movie. It doesn't feel like that at all. It feels necessary to the movie. When they say fuck, it's because you're going to say fuck in the situations in this film.
Right. Honestly, and, like, there's some parts in it that are gory as shit, but, like, with a slightly different editing, like, it's quick enough that I don't think that sticks with you as much as the language does. It is the language for this kind, for, Wolverine movie. The language, I think, was more the issue with the rating, probably, than the violence. Because the violence could have been easily toned down without losing any of the visceralness of it.
Well,
some of it.
There's a lot of decapitations in this film. This is a really bloody movie. Now, it's not like... it's
not bloody for the sake of being
exactly
bloody.
It's not a Mel Gibson film. Like, it's not, and then suddenly Wolverine picks up a torso and uses it as a human shield. Like, it's not, it doesn't go like that cartoonish with it. It's not like fucking Cannibal Ferox. No, it's violent because you got a guy with claws who's going at a bunch of people who are trying to kill him, so he has to kill them, and you're ripping these guys apart with some giant claws. There's gonna be some fucking gore.
Yes. Well, overall, this was an excellent movie, and I very briefly go into my issues with it. The first two acts are amazing. The third act, honestly, lost me a little bit. We'll hit some spoilers.
Yeah.
There's a clone younger Wolverine in the movie, and it was just so fucking unnecessary. It really was. Like, like, as soon as it showed up on screen, part of me just deflated after watching, like, an hour or more of just an hour and a half of just this great violent comic book road trip movie. And then there's clone younger Wolverine, and it was just kind of like, you couldn't have done something else, anything else.
That, to me, was also the weakest part of the movie. It didn't go as bad as I was dreading it would.
No. They didn't make it the focus of the movie, which is good. And in context of what they were doing, it made sense.
Yeah, honestly, they do explain it. They do, and I bought its explanation. I bought that just fine.
But at the same time, it did feel slightly forced.
I mean, when it first showed up in the movie, I was thinking in my head, like, there are a dozen ways this could go horribly wrong. And whenever the clone Wolverine is in it, it's no different than it is when he first shows up in the movie. It's not something like suddenly the clone Wolverine will get injected with something and then grow about 12 feet tall or something like that.
Or doesn't have like a heroic turn or...
To me, it at least remained relatively consistent when it first showed up.
Yeah.
So it didn't go in any kind of wrong direction that I was fearing it would go.
But they could have done something else and it would have been just as effective, honestly.
I honestly agree, yeah.
Because they already have a Wolverine clone in the movie who's this little girl who's essentially a Wolverine clone.
And they do explain it. They do,
and that works well. But why does this next Wolverine clone have to be exactly Wolverine?
Look like Hugh Jackman?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and not even look like... Why does it have to be exactly just Wolverine, though? Mm-hmm. You know? Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I could easily wrap my head around it in the movie. It was one of the more sillier aspects of the film. But whenever that clone is on screen and they are fighting, it's still raw. Like, it's still dark. There's still a lot of viciousness there. It doesn't suddenly turn into, like, the dog fight from Hulk. Like, there is still a lot of anger and brutality there when that happens in the film.
No, and... It's saved by the fact that it didn't take it too far, but also at the same time, it's just like, all right.
And it was doing some pretty, like, the first time we see this in the movie, it slaughters an entire family. I mean, it still remains pretty fucking R-rated.
Oh, yeah, no. And then my other issue in the third act was this fucking small army of mutant children that are in it. And the concept of the movie is this clone Wolverine girl is taken from a lab in Mexico, and Wolverine and Professor X are trying to get her to this place in South Dakota or whatever, where a bunch of other children are hopefully, the idea is everyone's supposed to meet there and then go off. And then Wolverine gets a girl there, and it's just there's like 30 of these fucking kids, and they're all... It just, some of it, honestly, like, just a lot of it didn't make... It wasn't bad, but at the same time, like, why were there so fucking many of them?
It didn't bother me at all. I mean, issues in terms of the third act that you're having with this, I had in the Wolverine, and this movie, to me, never got that ridiculous.
No, it doesn't have the Silver Samurai be a giant fucking robot with a man inside. Like, it doesn't do that. It doesn't go that far. It doesn't jump the shark that much. And I know it's me being nitpicky, because I think... I know it is. Well,
I mean, like, there's... No, I mean, if... Not necessarily.
No,
like,
it's me being nitpicky, because I'm sitting there going... The first 2/3 of this movie are so simple and kind of wonderful and small, and that's what makes them great. And then it got so much bigger so quickly, and it's like, you could have done the same thing with just, like, 3 kids.
Sure.
I think it would have been... I think it would actually have been more effective.
No, I mean, that would have been one way to go with it, but it didn't, to me, it didn't feel out of place from the other 2 acts of the movie, because they tell you why they're going there.
No,
I knew once they got there. It
matches up fine, it's just, when it happens, it's just, for me, it wasn't satisfying as much as the rest of the movie was.
I honestly really liked seeing these kids just kill a bunch of fucking people. Like, we've got this R-rated X-Men movie, and it's these kids just demolishing these people, and I honestly had a lot of fun seeing that.
Well, and some of that was fun, and some of the, like, uses of it were cool, but it's just kind of like they did that thing where that happened in a couple of the other X-Men movies, where they start getting into a group, and they're not all necessarily references to comic book characters. Some of them were.
Yeah.
And it's just like the Richter kid in it. Has been a character in the comic book since the 80s or so. And it's like, he's not a little kid in the comic. Why make that character a little kid? Like, I don't fucking get the need to do that. Like, that's throwing in a reference to throw in a fucking reference.
Sure.
That's what that is. Like, and that's, the rest of this movie wasn't doing that. And so when they did it, it bothered me.
Me to a point. I mean, this is a movie that literally shows the X-Men comics in the movie, and has, which I actually really liked, by the way.
Fucking hilarious.
I love the fact that the X-Men comics exist in this universe.
No, it's just, it gets to the end, and it's just some of that shit that probably won't bother anybody else, and doesn't make it any less of a good movie as a whole. It just bothered me personally. Like it's that part of my brain that goes, this is what I would do differently. And that's what's biting me right now. I'm sure like that there's no doubt in my mind I'm going to watch this movie again. Because apparently James Mangold wants to do a black and white release.
Oh, cool.
Which I think would be amazing. But yeah, I'm sure the next time I watch it, it won't bother me nearly as much. But this time it's just kind of like, fuck.
I thought it all tonally fit together. I did. I didn't think that it went too far in a cartoonish direction to the point to where it would really take me out of the movie. And yeah, it does end in this battle between these kid mutants and the soldiers and everything. But then it also, once that's all done with, there are some great death scenes in this movie, like when all the kids get together and just destroy that villain. And also, the last couple minutes of the movie, man, I was fighting back tears watching this thing. Like, it really was an emotional gut punch to me.
Well, and that was Jackman and that little girl.
Who is great in this film.
Who was fantastic.
Holy shit,
like,
she was good.
She was good, and like, some of the, like, the weird thing about this movie that I really loved was attention to detail in some of those emotional scenes where it's like, okay, Wolverine fucking dies in the end. And this little girl's holding him and weeping, just weeping. And the thing that it showed on screen that you hardly ever see in a movie, she had the snot coming out of her nose and running down her lip.
Well, you haven't seen Fences yet.
What? But like, you don't see that often.
No, yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Like, and that's such a nice, weird. It seems like a gross thing to focus on, but it was such a detail that it's just kind of like, oh yeah, I remember when I was a little kid sobbing, just the snot pouring. Like, that's a good detail.
I get that look on my face every day because I have a sneezing fit at least once a day. I think I did in the movie theater too. If I have a gripe, kind of, I wasn't 100% sold on the villain of this movie. Pierce.
They took some liberties with that character in essence, I think.
Here's my thing with him. It's not necessarily that this is a bad performance, or even that bad of a character necessarily. It feels like a character that would be the villain in, like, The Karate Kid. Or, like, he'd be Billy Zabka in the 80s. Or, like, you know what, honestly, he's kind of like if you took James Spader's Dutra from The New Kids and had him be the villain in an X-Men movie. And The New Kids is kind of a great movie, and James Spader as Dutra is awesome. But it's kind of like if I want to see Dutra be a villain in an X-Men movie, I might as well just want to see James Spader do it. This guy, again, it's not that it's really that bad of a performance, but in this really bleak, like, Peck and Paw universe that this kind of is, it was a very kind of 80s high school thriller villain.
You know, the thing is, I really liked that performance. I thought was great, honestly. And I liked that character. Now, I'll admit that, like, seeing this movie, you know, I read all the comic book websites and shit, so I can't say I was going in terribly blind, but, like, when they first announced this movie and they announced they were going to do a version of the Old Man Logan storyline, which, you know, basically it's post-ravaging of the Western world. So it's a wasteland, pretty much. And then they announce that character, And his military guys that are in the movie as the villains, they're called in the comics, they're called the Reavers, and they're all fucking cyborgs. One of the dudes is actually like cut off at the waist, and he's got like little tank treads.
Yeah. No, I like that. I like the style of these villains.
But I thought it was going to be like the Reavers chasing them across the country, and that made me really excited. But only one of them talks, and like,
I know, right? Like they're after a point they kind of get sidelined.
Yeah, no,
they do, and I didn't really like that.
They get sidelined to this weird scientist guy and the clone Wolverine.
Sure, that's the bad guy from Hudson Hawk.
Yeah, the weird scientist guy and the clone Wolverine. And that's the thing. It's like you're building a villain or this group for 2/3 of the movie, and that's one of the other reasons that I think the clone Wolverine really kind of like took me out of it a little bit. Was like, but you're building a villain already, and then you just jump to.
No, I agree.
You jump to this because do the villains you're building not seem tough enough? Because there's a lot of them, and Wolverine's. It's established that he's got adamantium poisoning and he's dying.
Yeah,
like so instead of, you know, this magic green liquid and clone Wolverine, cut those two fucking things out. Yeah, and just have this old beat up Hugh Jackman Wolverine versus all these guys that are fucking cyborgs.
No, exactly. They could have been like the fucking Knight Rider from because honestly, one of the things I liked about this was that it's in this future that's not unlike the first Mad Max movie. Yeah. Where it's like society still exists. There is still a functioning society, but it's on the verge of what feels like something really catastrophic is going to happen. Yeah. And I did like that about this. And I agree with you. Like, I would have preferred that, like, if you really just kind of did focus on these guys. Yeah. In fact, if you really did do that and didn't sideline them about halfway through, I probably would have got into the villain of this movie more than I did.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. I was watching those first 2/3 thinking, like, they're building this up to something awesome. And that's the thing also. He gets taken out by the fucking kids. Like,
I didn't mind that. Like,
see, and to me, that took some of the satisfaction out. I don't wanted fucking Logan to chop his fucking head off.
But man, when those kids all got together and just combined, I enjoyed that. I did. If I have a gripe, maybe it should have been a little longer. But
or a little clear, because they're all using these vague powers all at once, and it's like you don't know which one's using what power. Like they all got.
Because I wasn't confused by that.
See, to me, it was like there were so many of them. Everything was kind of blending together, and so it was like, well, who's doing what, and what's effective, and like what's like. Give me 3 with specific abilities that just fuck him up with those 3, so it's visceral. Like you can see exactly what's happening.
That didn't confuse me at all. I didn't have a problem identifying which kid was doing which power or anything like that.
They all kind of blended together to me. Oh. And then maybe that's just to me. But yeah, that's what it's those little things that it's like just clean this out a little bit more. And there was just some things that were like completely unnecessary. Like this old scientist guy, like they go on this weird tangent where he's responsible for there not being any mutants anymore because they started using like specially grown crops and shit. And why the fuck? Just do the Children of Men thing. There are no more mutants. You don't have to fucking explain it any more than that.
That didn't bother me, because once he starts explaining it, he gets shot in the head.
Well, yeah, he gets shot.
That didn't bother me at all. They've actually kept that explanation relatively short.
They did, but it was just one of those things that it's like, fuck.
Nah, overall, I thought this was a damn good movie.
I do too.
I did really enjoy the fuck out of this.
I know I've spent the past 10 minutes bitching about things, but yeah, overall, this was a great movie. And I think the things I'm bitching about are just like, to me, it could have been just slightly better, and then I would say it's an amazing movie. It was a fucking, it was a cunt's hair away from being just amazing, and it just didn't quite make the cut, so I think I'm a little frustrated by it.
I know that feeling.
You know?
I know that feeling.
Like, oh, fuck, it's so close.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I can't say I really had that. I walked out of this movie, I sat there and watched it from beginning to end, and walked out thoroughly satisfied with this movie. Like, I loved how this is a movie where just people fucking die in this. Like, like characters, like, when you go into it, you kind of figure, like, some characters are gonna, or some important characters are gonna die in this, but there are minor characters that pop up in this movie that you don't think are gonna get fucking slaughtered, and they do.
Yeah.
Like, and it hits you, man. It hits you hard. So I highly fucking recommend this movie, especially after Apocalypse.
Oh yeah. No, and honestly, for like, you know, working on these characters for 20 years for Hugh Jackman and you know, Patrick Stewart to go out on this movie, like, honestly, after this, they should both be done, because I don't think they're going to make a better movie with those characters.
No.
I really don't think they're going to, so this is a good time for them to be done.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 1,000%. I mean, why take that fucking chance, man?
Well,
you know?
it's... Well, even beyond that, it's like... You know,
what else are you gonna do?
Well,
like,
Hugh Jackman's been doing this for 20 fucking years,
yeah.
and he's a good fucking actor. So instead of doing these huge tentpole movies that take up so much of his time, let him do some movies where he really gets to fucking be an actor.
Like Prisoners, holy shit.
And like this, too.
No, totally, yeah.
Like, let him be a fucking actor now. Like, he's earned it. Like,
yeah.
Like, he put in more time as a character, like a major franchise character, than just about anybody I can fucking think of.
Yeah.
Like, really, who else does that for 20 fucking years?
I can think of ones that took a hiatus and would come back. Peter Sellers as Inspector Clouseau.
Yeah, but how many of those movies are there?
Pink Panther, Shot in the Dark, Return of the Pink Panther, the Alan Arkin one, Pink Panther Strikes Again.
But with Peter Sellers in them.
Well, the only one with, Peter Sellers' tenure, the only one in that he wasn't in was Inspector Clouseau, the Alan Arkin one. There was Strikes Again, there was Revenge of the Pink Panther, and then there was the ones that he just had, like, just stock footage in and things like that.
But in the meantime, and behind all that shit, even before those, he was one of the, like, go-to guys in Hollywood as a character actor. And he did shit like Being There and stuff. Like, the man, like, his career, like, no offense to Hugh Jackman, but there's really no comparing the two career-wise at this point, I don't think.
You didn't see a lot of Peter Sellers' 70s movies that weren't...
I've seen a lot of them.
That weren't Inspector Clouseau.
No,
Did you see Soft Beds, Hard Battles?
No. There's a lot of bad ones, too. Don't get me wrong, but...
There are some good... There's some damn good ones.
Yeah.
Like After the Fox is good, and Lady Killers and stuff like that.
But, yeah, that's the thing. It's like, Hugh Jackman... Like, yeah, he like, people know him as fucking Wolverine.
Yeah.
Like, it's time to know him as just a good, solid actor.
There's one guy out there who mainly knows him from the movie Australia.
Swordfish.
Yes.
Remember Swordfish?
I kind of enjoyed that when it first came. I haven't seen it since, but I was like, this movie's kind of great. They're testing his hacker skills by having him get a blowjob at gunpoint.
Yeah, I watched that movie again like a year ago. Doesn't hold up. Like, anything from that period with hackers in it,
Oh, well.
it's just kind of like... Were things ever so quaint?
To me, that means it does hold up, but in a different way.
Yes.
You probably got to get home, don't you?
Yes, very much so. Very much so.
All right. Well, I know there's going to be a couple of stuff that we try to see, like mid next week, probably Tuesday. I can't remember what comes out next week. Oh, Kong. Kong Skull Island comes out Thursday next week. So, anyway, we'll see you then.